Mike shared, I've been with Heritage for a few years, and as I was sharing before we started, I am a mother of 3 kiddos. I've been teaching since 2000. I started teaching for the Los Angeles Unified School District, and I've been teaching online since 2012. So it is just really fascinating to see the evolution of the K-12 space moving online. And I think that there is, a lot of good things that can come out of it. I think challenge is hard. Doing things differently when you don't really have a choice is really hard. And trying to manage it all when you have other responsibilities makes it feel very overwhelming and almost impossible. But I'm reminding you all today to give yourself some grace, and you got this, okay? Take small bites, start with a few tech tools. Remember to put the onus of learning into the hands of your students. Let them be the leaders, let them be the teachers, let them show you what they know. This is the YouTube generation, and they will eat it up and do amazing things if you just trust in their ability to do so. So we're going to talk a little bit about some distance learning, and we're also going to wrap that around the concept of grit. So let's get started. And I will just share my presentation with you guys, and I believe Mike is going to also share my presentation. So let me just get started, and you'll have access to all of these resources that I'm sharing with you guys today. I do have a YouTube channel because I have 3 kids and they love YouTube. And they definitely, if you have kiddos, you probably have heard them ask you, Mom, can I make a YouTube channel? So it's fun. Video is fun. I have actually had to do a really complex task for one of my jobs last week, and I couldn't understand the directions. And one of our millennial staffers made a video, and in 1 minute I got the task and was able to complete what I needed to do and move on. So there is a lot of power in video, so I encourage you guys to just start getting into that mindset and practice. It's great to curate videos, but when it comes to building relationships with your students, they need to see you. They need to hear you. They need to feel you. And that's how those relationships happen. Like I said, I've been teaching online since 2012. And even though students don't always take a class with me because, I have like 1 class and 6 sections of it, I get emails from my students all the time, and they're like, oh, wow, I feel like I know you because I've seen your videos, and yet they've never taken a class with me. So it's a really powerful tool, and we'll get a little bit into that, and definitely reach out to me, you guys, if you have any questions or you want to know, how do I do this, how to do that? I'll be happy to share any resources I have with you and tips. So when we talk about grit, okay, just do a quick sketch in your head on a piece of paper. Draw a picture that represents what grit is and what grit is not. Nancy Fisher, can you share what you drew? If you want to just show your picture, just put it up to the screen like this so we can see it.
Yeah. Okay, so I drew a little like smiley face, but he's got sweat coming down and it says, yes, I can. So that's
Nice.
grit to me. Yeah.
So it's a lot of sweat, right?
Yep.
I think Einstein said that it's 99% perspiration, 1% genius. So you got to put that hard work in there, right? To make it happen.
Yes.
All right. So grit was actually coined by Professor, Angela Ducksworth, who is out of University of Pennsylvania. Building on the concept of growth mindset that you probably have all, it's been around for some time, came out of Stanford from Carol's work. And if you're a math teacher, you're probably familiar with Joe Bowler's work in the area of U cubed. She's awesome too. Well, I really love Lila Stingeris. She is also an author. She wrote Grit in the Classroom. If you are a middle school teacher, I would highly recommend this book. She writes it from the lens of teaching middle school. And if you click on her picture later on, I actually reached out to Lila and asked her if I could do an interview with her so you can listen to all the things that she shares, all the best practices on my podcast. But she also has a new book coming out about parenting and grit. And Lila kind of piggybacked on the work of Angela and just kind of framed it into the classroom and what it looks like for teaching and learning. And so there are really three components: passion, perseverance, and commitment. So as a classroom teacher, we need to kind of evoke that passion in our learners, right? We need to get them passionate about what's happening. And then from there, we can build in perseverance. So when they want to give up and they have a challenging task, how do we get them to persevere? And then making that commitment through practice and structure and routines, all those things that you guys remember learning about Classroom Management 101, right? Without all those things in place, you really can't have a well-run classroom. And so kids really aren't in that, they don't have the skill set to self-regulate. So we have to provide those structures for them so they can move in each of those areas. So Angela Ducksworth said, grit is like living life like a marathon. It is not a sprint, right? Any of you out there have actually run a marathon in your life? You can raise your hand.
I've been to the Boston Marathon twice, and I'm training for my third.
Oh my goodness. Wow. I'm from Boston, so that resonates with me, Nancy. I grew up watching the Boston Marathon my whole life.
Nice. That's awesome.
It's a lot of commitment and energy, and just having, like Nancy was saying, your training, it's a schedule, it's a routine. There's times where you want to give up, times where you just feel like you can't do this, but you persevere. And a lot of times, I've actually ran a marathon myself, believe it or not. I quit smoking by training for a marathon because I was like so over it. I was in my 20s. I picked it up in college. I just wanted to quit. So I decided to join a group to train for running a marathon. And it was kind of that group energy for me because I was never like a runner that got me through all of that tough times and got me to persevere. So when you're thinking about designing these learning experiences, it's not just designing for one. You think about all your learners and what they need. Some kids need that group space. So whether you're designing a project online and having them work online, other kids need that one-on-one coaching and feedback. Some kids need a highly structured space so that they can kind of help them self-regulate and move forward. Other kids need voice and choice. So there's a lot of different strategies that you have to kind of think about when you are designing these spaces for your learners. So in a nutshell, grit is not giving up when you want to and sticking with your goals no matter the challenges you faced, right? Here's an example of my kiddo trying to learn a trick on a skateboard. It's a lot of falling, there's a lot of failure, there's injuries, sometimes there's a little bit of blood and pain. I think if you guys are parents out there, you remember the first time your toddler ran and fell, and your immediate response is like, man, I just gotta rush over there and just like be there for my child. But my third kid, I was like, okay, she's got this. I can step back and she will be okay. It took me 3 kids to realize I was actually exacerbating the problems and creating these mindsets of like, you can't do this, you don't got this, because I was like right in there to rush in and help. So here's an example of grit with my kids during the age of distance learning. My daughter, who's in 1st grade, she had some math worksheets, and it was on different 3-dimensional shapes. Well, one of them was a sphere, and nobody in my house knew what a sphere was. So I said, I'm going to get gritty with this, and we created our own Edpuzzle. Anybody out there using Edpuzzle? Raise your hand. It's a phenomenal tool. It allows you to create or curate videos. So any video that you have, whether it's like a math antics video, a phonics video, it could be a video of yourself. So think about having a flipped classroom model where you're creating a video. And then what you do is once you've created your video, you can upload it to this Edpuzzle tool. And then see these little dots here at the bottom of the screen? Right here underneath the video image I shared with you guys. Those are all questions that I've put into my video to check for my students' understanding. So think about a formative assessment. And this came out of the fact my son had to watch a video also on dissecting a cow eyeball. He's in 6th grade. and he was just scrolling along, and I was like, there has to be a way that we can make sure that these kids are actually getting this content, and we're checking in with them and make sure that they get it and they're engaged. So we'll just watch this if I can load it on here. Oh, I can't. But just to further on this tool, and there's a link, you guys can actually watch my video that I create, and we do these little images, we show the different shapes, and then the kids have to guess what the name of the shape is. But you can, as I shared, you can curate any videos online from all of these websites. So even if you have a Khan Academy video, which kids, by the way, typically find very boring, you can slice and dice it. Maybe there's some really good pieces in there that your kids need to watch. You can slice and dice it by adding in a question. You can even put yourself in there and say, hey guys, we just watched how Khan explained quadratic equations. What questions do you have? Or now that you've gone through this example, what do you think about this concept? So you can add either open-ended or multiple choice questions. And again, this tool is going to work with all of these different platforms. So grit is not determined by your IQ level and your previous achievements. Your I can is more important than your IQ. So it's really about that mindset, like you said, running a marathon, like I can quit smoking, you guys. I actually did it, even though I knew I had a problem. So how do we change that mindset in our students, right? There's a lot of self-talk. There's a lot of group effort. There's a lot of, structure and just kind of rewards and behavioral contingencies that help build in that I can. So it's not going to be easy, just like distance learning is not easy, right? You've got kids all across. Some of them don't have the tools that they need, but we can't give up and we can't be compliant. We have to keep pushing forward and challenging ourselves to incorporate and use the technology and to make these connections with our learners. So here's an example of what grit is not, right? So Singuris in her book says, perseverance is not to be confused with compliance. Students who complete their assignments out of compliance are not going to become gritty. They aren't developing a passion, and they won't persevere when things get tough, right? So you probably have kids that are A students, and they might even front load that at the beginning of the school year and say, just so you know, I have a 4.0 GPA, and I've always been an A student. And then after their test, they might come up to you and say, I really need to get an A. So obviously they're telling you like that most important thing to them is the grade. It's not actually the learning or the change that happens when they're growing and being challenged. So it's a really important for us to kind of wrap our head around is that compliance is not perseverance. We have to be intentional in our practice in ways that we can teach kids how to persevere. So here's some top 10 ways to get gritty with lots of things. This is me over 20 years ago. Grit is personal. I started teaching in South Los Angeles. It was a challenge. I think my first day I came in with a yoga mat and a lava lamp because that's what I thought I was going to be doing every day. And so remember your first years of teaching and how you persevered and overcome all of those challenges, right? This is kind of like the first year again, okay? You don't give up. You keep challenging yourself. You do what you need to do, whether it's like, I remember my mentor teacher gave me a book of 365 quotes, and I read one every single day to just build my own mindset that I can do it. So make this a personal journey. Share your stories about how you persevered as well with your students. Grit is modeled. So it's important for us to also share models of grit in your life. This is my grandmother. She's 92 years old. And, she's seen a lot. She's gone through a lot. Remember to tap into stories of people in your life. Have your students tap into stories of people that they have in their families to kind of connect with these stories so that they can persevere through challenging times. Also share some real examples. Everyone knows the story of J.K. Rowling, Michael Jordan. He was booted from his high school basketball team. And that's Bethany, who is a surfer, and she lost her arm from a shark attack and still continued on with surfing and becoming a accomplished surfer. Grit is also personal. This is, we went back east last summer to visit my mom. She had this wallpaper on her wall from like 40 years ago. I said, we're gonna do this. We are going to take this wallpaper off. So try to create experiences with your kids and online, whether it's, you know, building something, creating something, doing something, constructing something. It has to be a lived experience. And that builds into this philosophy of experiential learning, which is hands-on, it's active, kids learn by doing. So even though we're working with technology and we want to incorporate all of these digital tools, which are fun and fascinating, you also have to provide experiences for kids to go on nature walks, you know, do something, have a passion project, and I'll share those templates with you guys. Incorporate things like Genius Hour so that they can build in their own perseverance and think about things that they want to develop, and then provide the tools and resources and structures for them to create those things and to have something that they can bring back and show with their classmates. So here is the after of the room. Doesn't it look phenomenal? And my mom was super stoked, and the kids did it. So it becomes something. If you think back of your own experiences in your life, these are the things that you remember. It's not when you look back in your, oh, I remember that we did, you know, a time test every day for 20 minutes, or, you know, it's things that they actually kids experience. I remember my teacher coming in, playing the guitar after she actually, this was in 4th grade. I will never forget, you guys. She was going through cancer, and she came in and she had a wig on, and she told us all about her battle with cancer. But she came in and she played the guitar every day, and she was still there for us. And I kid you not, when I was going through hard times in my life in my 20s, you know, I was the first person in my family to graduate. I told you guys that I used to smoke cigarettes. I grew up in a high poverty area in Boston. I remember that teacher. I remember what she experienced in her difficult challenges. And I was like, if Miss Santa Maria can get through cancer and everything that she experienced, I can get through this challenge. I can persevere. So remember that, because you are really forming. The brain is still forming. We're working with kiddos that are learning, and their brain is forming. So those experiences that you share with them is going to help them. It helped me, and I'm sure a lot of you guys can also share your experiences where you had teachers that they shared those experiences and they helped you while you moved into adulthood. So grit is belief, right? This is kind of building on that idea of growth mindset that I already talked about. But think about this when you're starting to work with your kiddos, and think about the statements that they're saying, because that will help you determine those mindset that your students have. And once you know what kind of mindset they have, then you can be like a doctor and prescribe certain interventions for your class, whether it's self-talk, whether it's a daily morning meditation or routine to help them move that mindset that they've adopted, they've already have walking into your classroom. So our beliefs influence our outcomes. You guys already know that. I was really interested, you know, I work in the area of teacher education, but Linda Darling-Hammond, if you haven't heard about her, she's out of Stanford as well. She's been in the area of teacher education for her entire career. Her research, really much like the big thing about teacher that she's found in all of her years of doing research, is that the best predictor of a child's performance and their academic achievement in the classroom is the teacher's belief in them. So you guys are really the music makers in the classroom. Your belief about your students will influence how they do, okay? It might be a lot more nudging and personal phone calls and connections that you need to make during the time of distance learning. And it's, you know, certainly gonna be a lot more time in front of the screen. but you can make it happen. You can make those kids feel seen, heard, appreciated, loved. Send them letters, you know, before the school year starts, write them a letter, send it in the mail, introduce yourself, do a video, you know, front load that, what your expectations are with the parents, send them a newsletter, let them know how you're going to be communicating with them. And I'm not sure where we are with time, but this is a quick video from Will Smith about grit and motivation. And I'm just going to share it for the sake of time, but I want you guys to know that when you are going through this presentation, at the link at the bottom of this slide here with Will Smith is an entire Padlet. If you haven't used Padlet, it's basically a board where you can add different images and links. This is an entire link to about 30 different motivational videos that I've curated as part of the Grit in the Classroom course. So just encourage you guys to kind of share those videos with your students to get them motivated. Again, I talked about the importance of fostering collaboration and what that looks like and why it's important. Some kids are, you know, definitely, I have 3 kids, they're very different. They need that social interaction with their peers to really build that motivation. And again, the positive self-talk. So if you start hearing these messages in your classroom, think about how you can, you know, you want to spend time doing this stuff, right? Your first few weeks shouldn't be about just content, but about shifting that mindset of your learners, building those relationships, you know. And when it comes to technology, you want to make sure that the technology is not heavily content embedded, but it could be a fun Kahoot. It could be a Poplet where they're writing about themselves. It could be a Quizzy where they're just, you know, playing a game about what they did over the summer. So you want to make it light and fun and engaging, and then you build in the content level curriculum once they've got oriented to these different technology tools. So be a coach, be a cheerleader, support your learners. And there's certainly a lot of research on the importance of specific measurable feedback and how it helps students in terms of motivation and overcoming challenges and adopting a growth mindset. Oops. All right. I talked a little bit about the importance of building grit with kids, but you also, especially in the area of distance learning, here's an example of 2 newsletters that you can share with your parents. So you also want to make sure that you're kind of training the trainer, right? You want to shift your role because you guys are really teacher trainers now. You're training the parents to also support their kids at home. So whether you do a newsletter or a weekly email and you talk about your learning objectives with the video, help set the stage, and teach them about grit. So help parents know what to do when they become frustrated with their kids, when their kids want to give up, and what that really means and what it looks like. So this is an example of a hyperdoc, and there is a link to creating a hyperdoc if you're not familiar with that. But again, as I talked about, grit is something that's developed, it's experience. So you need to create a space for your kids to have some choice and autonomy. Passion projects. This video really talks about kids sharing their passion and, you know, giving them choice. As the middle schooler talking about her passion in the area of gun control and why she thinks it's important to have gun control and legislation. So if you're working with secondary students, giving them an opportunity to talk about some of these current events and build it into a passion project that they can share their knowledge, expertise, and insight with their classmates. Here's an example of a Google slide deck that you guys can use. It's a battle research project. So just a good example of how you would structure a online learning project. If you don't have a Bitmoji, obviously you guys have seen my Bitmoji several times. I do have a video on how to create and use Bitmoji in the classroom. It's really easy. It's included in this presentation. again, it just creates kind of like a space of like, oh, there's my teacher. She's a cute little cartoon character. And you can set the stage for what you want your students to do. So in this presentation, they're creating an infographic on a Civil War battle that they're studying. Here's another example. If you're an ELA teacher, this one's on theme. And I've also shared this presentation with you guys. It's a Google slide deck that's interactive. So as the students are making, if you haven't done Google Slides, there's a video on that. But what you'll do is you'll share your slide deck, and then the kids will just work in the slide deck on a particular topic. And as you can see, just like this presentation, you have the content that's embedded, and then the kids just answer the questions in the little boxes there. All right, so here's kind of another way that you can build grid in a distance learning platform. This is for my math class with my kiddos, my early learners. They have a morning Jamboard where they check in, and if Jamboard is like Google, it's like Padlet, and then when they click on it, I'm not sure how much time I have, if we have time to go through this, but all of these hyperlinks is what they need to do in their daily agenda. And there is a video here on how you can make a virtual classroom like this. These are all interactive images that are virtual manipulatives for the students to use. So feel free to check this out as well. And make sure that you are intentional with grit in terms of setting goals and reflecting. These are just two examples of a template that I created so the students can set goals. It's important to set goals at the beginning of the school year and then provide an opportunity. So whether you're teaching early learners, I mean, when I was teaching first grade, we would set goals about our reading fluency and our math computation skills that we wanted to acquire, and then providing points for kids to check in throughout the school year. Okay, you know, at the beginning of the school year, I was reading 15 words a minute. Now, after 2 weeks, I'm reading 30. What have I been doing? Oh, I've been reading every day. I've been reading for 20 minutes. And so even though that seems like, yeah, that's common sense, kids need to reflect. We do it intentionally because we're adults, our brains are developed, but we need to scaffold that for our learners because kids don't do that intentionally, and that's how they learn. So, right? I mean, when you have a conflict in your classroom and you have the kids reflect and think about their actions, then they learn from those mistakes. But we also need to set that type of intention when we're teaching our learners. We need them to reflect on what they did, right? And it helps build a growth mindset. Yes, I failed the test because I didn't study, or I didn't look at my notes, or maybe I did study and this is how I did it. So provide opportunities for your kids to also share those strategies with their classmates so they can be intentional in what they're doing. All right. Here's another example of a project. This one is for math. It's a project-based activity, and the kids had to pick a campsite. They got to pick a car, which was really fun for them. I think somebody wanted to pick like a Lamborghini, and then this student actually was a little bit more. You actually learn a lot about your students when you give them projects. I'm like, oh, this student was very practical, right? You know, they took their mom's Toyota Tacoma instead of renting a Lamborghini. And then they had to calculate how much gas and mileage they would spend based on the distance. So this dude just took a screenshot with Google Maps, and I provided the table for them because we were learning about ratios, and they had to figure out how many miles per gallon and how much the cost would be. Here's an example of building on that project because they were going on a camping trip. They had to build their own tent using the virtual graph paper. So you can see I gave the step-by-step instructions. Now, you can even include a video here because some of your kids might need to actually see it, and some of them might be able to just read it and do it. But I always err on the side of the more modeling I can do, the more successful my kids are going to be. And in terms of creating a video, if you can't synthesize what you want them to do in 5 minutes, then you're talking too much. It's too long because you've lost their attention. So you want to try to keep your videos to 5 minutes. And honestly, that's going to help you also in terms of chunking the task. If the task is a 20-minute video, it's way too long and you've already lost their attention. So think about how you can break apart a task like finding the surface area with virtual graph paper and just do one chunk at a time. And maybe it's 3 slides with 3 videos. So here's 3 videos and 3 ways that you can engage your kids with virtual manipulatives in an online learning space. I love Bridges Math Learning Center, and the left video is how I'm modeling division with manipulatives. And so with my students, they use a Google Chrome screenshot. It's an app that they download through Chrome extension, and it looks like the little Chrome triangle. That's why I'm making the sign. And so what it does is just goes, if they're on a Chromebook, the extensions are key because they don't have any software. They can't download anything. So you have to teach them how to use Chrome extension, and they'll just download the app. It goes right in their browser. So anytime they open up Google or whatever, Google or Safari or something like that, you'll see a whole list of tools that are right in the browser. So this is one of my favorites. The other one is Screencastify, and that's another free tool, or Loom, so they can create their own videos. And you can see in the right-hand side a video of my student making an array using Google Slides. So he's moving the cars into the parking lot, which is actually a great example of an array in real life with cars in a parking lot, and there's 2 rows of 6, and then some kids might say it's 2 plus 2 plus 2 plus 2 plus 2. Another kid might say it's 2 rows of 6, 2 times 6. So creating open-ended tasks, which I talk about in the virtual math class, is how you can reach and meet all learners. The more closed-ended your math tasks are, the more you're only creating a task for one student and one kind of learner. So you want to create these tasks where all students can have access and they can show you what they know.